Hi everyone, good afternoon to you all and thanks for joining us today for the webinar. The landscape for any business has never been so volatile and competitive. So today we're going to hear from industry experts, Jeremy Cox, founder of CX Create, Sally Conway, strategy and marketing leader at Shawbrook Bank, and Suvish Viswanathan, technology evangelist at Zoho. This promises to be a lively discussion. We're going to hear all about how to create the best customer experience during these turbulent times, including the right tools to help build out a customer experience platform. We're also going to have some direct insight from UK specialist savings and lending bank Shawbrook about how they are executing their customer experience strategy. Plus also, towards the end of the session, we'll give you an exclusive sneak peek into an exciting new CX feature from Zoho, which is coming soon. And we'll ask you to keep this confidential for now. So I'll just recap on some of the areas that you've seen in your invitations to the webinar today. So any of you who engage with customers or are trying to create an environment fit for customers today and tomorrow will benefit from some of the advice given today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping points. So throughout the session today, we'd love to hear from you with any questions you might have. You'll see you have a questions tab on the left of your screen. So please do pop your questions in there throughout the session. And if you can, please do mark the expert you would like to answer your question. We'll come to those at the end of the session today. And don't worry if we don't get to your question, we'll come back to you after the session to answer individually for any that we don't have time to reach. We would also love to hear your thoughts in our poll. You'll see we've also got a poll on the left of the screen. So please do participate by clicking on the poll icon on the left of your screen. Just let us know how you'd rate your current customer experience strategy in your organization on a scale from 1 to 5 stars, with 1 being poor and 5 being excellent. It's completely anonymized, so please do tell us your honest opinion. We'd love to hear it. Following the webinar, we're also going to share with you a recording of today's session, and we'll also give you the opportunity to download an extremely insightful report written by one of today's experts, Jeremy Cox, which will give you further guidance around today's topics. So without further ado, let's hear from Jeremy. Jeremy recently founded CX Create, and he is a leading thinker in customer experience and engagement. Following roles at IBM and KPMG, Jeremy joined industry analyst firm Ovum, now known as Omdia, where he worked for 8 years as principal analyst, customer engagement strategy and platforms. He worked with many organizations to help them deliver customer engagement capabilities to deliver positive customer experiences, and he also led research and insights in this area. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy now to take it away.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you'll find this helpful and informative. Right. Now, before we get into how to build the experience, let's have a look at this idea of the era of the Darwinian, extreme Darwinian era that we happen to be in today. Now, some of you may have seen similar diagrams to this, but ever since the late 50s, the average lifespan of a large enterprise has collapsed quite dramatically. Today, it's around about 10 years on average. And according to McKinsey, if this trend continues, by the end of, or by the middle of 2030s, something like 70% of the S&P 500 companies will be out of business. Now, of course, I think most of us recognize that we're living in very volatile times. And of course, things are changing dramatically. And perhaps one of the biggest changes is that the power has shifted absolutely to the customer today. It's far easier for them to search for products online, to make recommendations to people they never even met before on social media, etc. So these are very much more challenging times. And then, of course, we've got the pandemic that's hit us all, and that's exposed both operational and customer engagement weaknesses within our organizations. But it's also really sort of driven the need to learn how to engage with customers digitally, especially as it's been impossible to meet them face to face. And this has affected all sorts of businesses. Some of the largest retailers, or many large retailers, have actually gone into liquidation, not just because of the pandemic, and some of them were already on that road, but they didn't have that ability to offer e-commerce, for example, to help sort of shore up their revenue. And in B2B environments, supply chains have been disrupted. Face-to-face selling has been massively disrupted. And so we all need to learn how to digitally engage with our customers. And many organizations have absolutely accelerated their sort of digital transformation initiatives. But over the last 4 years at Omdia, they've researched into the current state of play of digital transformation. And I've been looking specifically at where that impacts customer engagement. And something like 2/3 of organizations are at risk of becoming irrelevant to their customers because they haven't learned to engage with them through digital means effectively. So there's a lot riding on this. So what would Darwin have to say? Well, one of the many pithy quotations from him, the one that resonates most with me, is it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. And what's true in the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom is also true in business. So what we actually need, if we are to remain relevant to our customers, is our organizations need to be more like organisms and less like siloed departments, one after the other. And what we need is a nervous system for the enterprise. And this little diagram here of the OODA Loop comes from actually a long way back. Back in the late 50s and early 60s, Colonel John Boyd came up with the idea of the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And this was as a result of pilots being shot out of the skies, not because their equipment was deficient, but because their enemies were far more agile and their decision cycles were much shorter. And so that's why he came up with this idea of the OODA Loop. And this is what we need within our organizations. Not just an OODA Loop from top to bottom or end to end, but actually a network of them to create that enterprise nervous system. And of course, it needs to be contained within something. And the implication would be that it's a unified environment, so that we can actually take advantage of the insights streaming into the organization and act on them in a connected way. And so what we need then, to sort of put it in a nutshell, is a connected engagement platform so that we connect the customer with our organization, and a connected operational backbone. That's a term used by MIT. So that's your back office, if you like. And connecting these together, because often when people talk about customer experience, what goes on in the operations is overlooked. But actually that provides the foundation for a positive customer experience, or a negative one if it's not reliable, if it's not consistent, etc. So these two must be brought together and connected. And insight must inform not just our customer engagement capabilities, but also what's going on in the back office and operations as well. And even into our ability to innovate, so that we're drawing on those insights to create new forms of value for our customers, whether that's improving the customer experience or even coming out with new products and services to meet their needs, which are changing all the time. But it's not just about systems, it's also about designing this environment with some common principles. And what I've done here is I've simplified it and boiled it down to 4 key principles that I think can help in designing the right kind of unified environment for customers. So the first one is to recognize and understand the customer. Second, protect the customer, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. To ideally dynamically orchestrate the experience so that however they interact, they're receiving a relevant experience. And also recognizing that we need to adapt continuously. It's not a one-shot wonder. It's something that we have to do all the time if to remain relevant. So let me just get into these principles in a little bit more detail for you. So if we look at the first one, recognize and understand, the recognition piece is sometimes relatively easy. So for instance, if the customer has to log in for a service or something online, then obviously they're recognized. The really difficult one is, or the challenging one is how do we build up an understanding of the customer so that we can really deliver a personalized experience for them? There's their history, their preferences. What do they expect from us? What are their behaviors? Which channels, for instance, do they prefer? What's their context as they're interacting with us? What are they trying to achieve? And so somehow we need to synthesize all this data from multiple sources to create that view of the customer, that profile of the customer. But the second one is about protecting the customer, and this really speaks to the foundation of trust. We've got to protect their data and obviously their credentials against misuse or loss or theft, for instance. We need to protect them from fraud. It's best if it's a permission-based environment. I know that things like regulations like GDPR have helped concentrate the mind somewhat, but fundamentally, a permission-based approach helps to build trust with the customer where they feel that they are in control. So this is a really important aspect of the customer experience, as well as obviously maintaining compliance with whatever regulations come out. The third one is actually, I think, one of the most difficult of all, and this is to dynamically orchestrate the experience. So teeing up the right response as customers interact, whether it's online or even in a physical store. So how do you do that? And actually, it has implications, quite profound implications, because it assumes that the environment is unified and connected. It assumes that it is channel agnostic, if you like, so that however the customer interacts with the organization, their journey is unbroken. And it also means that if they move from one department to another, or if they're interacting between departments, that their journey is unbroken and they don't have to repeat themselves. And if the focus is on delivering value to customers, an outcomes-driven approach, then the likelihood is that they will achieve what their goals are and reward us with their continued business. So this is a really important environment. And if you like, traditional CRM systems are transactional by nature. You know, they may record the details about the customer, they may record the transactional history of the customer, but they don't tell us an awful lot about the context of the customer during their interactions. This is why it's so challenging. But fortunately, out of the sort of evolving out of CRM, we've now got these more advanced customer engagement platforms, like, for instance, Zoho CRM Plus, which are hybrid systems of record, so they keep all the records that CRM traditionally did, but also engagement, so they're enabling the engagement with the customer. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but first, let's have a look at the fourth principle. And this is the one about adapting continuously. So we need to continuously sense what's going on outside the organization, what's going on in the world of the customer, and adapt accordingly. And we can use many different sort of feedback mechanisms for that. It could be survey data, it could be observing customers and the interactions they have, and recognizing where they're difficult and we could make them better. And it's also about continuously innovating and creating new value for customers so that they want to stay with us. And ultimately, it's about being persistently relevant. So that's what adapting continuously is fundamentally all about. So those four principles should help guide the design of your customer engagement capabilities. So who does this well? Now, very few organizations do, but one that I think does this remarkably well is a company called Inditex. Now, you may not have heard of Inditex, but almost certainly you will have heard of the name of one of their major brands, Zara. And what's so good about this organization, and why I think it's relevant irrespective of the size of your businesses, is that The secret of their success has remained the same right from the outset. Back in 1963, they were a small dressmaker in Spain. Today, they're operating in something like 200 countries around the world. But right from the start, they decided to design an environment around their customers. So everything they do, from the design of clothing through to the sourcing materials, product development, logistics, the stores, and in recent years, their e-commerce capabilities as well. Everything is designed around the customer. And although last year their revenue, like most of us, most organizations, dipped slightly, they still came out with a thumping great profit of 1.1 billion euros. A remarkable story. So a customer engagement platform, it really sort of consists of four key attributes, if you like. You've got the basic plumbing, if you like, the infrastructure of the organization. And then you've got what I would call the trust building capabilities. So things like well, first of all, you need the unified customer data so that you can actually respond to individual customers at the individual level. You need those control mechanisms to ensure that their data is protected. Things like artificial intelligence are increasingly playing a part in terms of acting as triggers for the right response, as well as generating insights so that you can understand the customer in more detail. But ultimately, employees engage with customers, so they need support as well. They need help to perform their tasks and perform their magic with customers. And that's so things like having collaboration platforms in place so that even if they don't have the full answer, they can collaborate with employees, perhaps in a different department, to actually generate the right kind of response. And then, of course, they need the frontline support in their day-to-day tasks, things like your sales, your marketing, your service applications, etc. And then ultimately, the experience is delivered in a number of ways, both physically and digitally. So things like the web. Every business today needs a website that enables customers to find what they're looking for. Or it could be commerce sites so that they can actually order what they found to meet their particular requirements. So that's a customer engagement platform. And I'm sure that summarize all of this is you have to connect that unified and connected environment. So operations and customer engagement working together in a unified way. The four design principles can help guide your development of that unified environment. And it's important to have that common purpose in terms of everyone pulling in the same direction, and the goal being to deliver value to customers and as a result, getting value back from them with their continued business. And it's about developing a customer engagement platform, connecting it to operations. Okay. So now let me pass on to Sally, who can tell us about their unified environment and the progress they've made. Thank you very much, Sally. I'll just see if I can pass the controls over to you.
So thank you, Jeremy. You had some excellent guidance there. We'll definitely make sure that slide is passed over. So we're going to hear now from Sally Conway at Shawbrook Bank. Sally's going to give us an insight into the company's CX strategy. Sally's worked in marketing and strategy for 10 years, been with Shawbrook Bank since 2017. Throughout her career, Sally has gained experience in the area of customer acquisition and retention, and she now focuses on ensuring Shawbrook takes a customer-centric approach to everything they do by using data, insights, and technology to optimize customer journeys and promote the best experience for their customers. So Sally, please do go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, hi to everybody. So yeah, I'm Sally. I am strategy and marketing leader in Shawbrook Bank. And before I start off explaining kind of our customer experience strategy, I'll just give you a bit of background about Shawbrook Bank as a whole. So we were formed in 2011 and we're a specialist UK lending bank, savings and lending bank. And the consumer division that I work over is probably the newest arm to the bank, but we've got our hands in many different pots. So we do business finance, which is very, very B2B led business, as well as property finance. We do savings for business and personal, and also we focus on the consumer space, which we mainly deal with personal loans and also partner finance. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what our partner finance proposition is when I kind of explain our customer experience journey. I just wanted to bring out that, I guess, when we're talking about customer experience, it seems like more of kind of a process that we've got to go through, but I think as a business, you've really got to take it in, and you've got to be able to, I guess, evidence it throughout your company's culture and everything that you do. So one of the big pillars that we have in Shawbrook Bank is really focusing in on what we call our customer-led approach, and in everything that we do and projects that we carried out and products that we're developing is making sure that we bring the customer into the room, to make sure that really we are developing products that do fit specific customer needs, not just because we think they should be developed. And I guess that we take kind of these 6 things into consideration when we're doing so. So every time we think about making a new product or the journeys that we're trying to enhance or optimize, we take each of these into consideration. So in terms of what we've kind of done with Zoho and our kind of customer experience strategy, our partner finance business is B2B to C. So essentially what that means is we work with partners who then use our finance products to serve their customers. And if I can give you an example, if you were looking to buy a whole new set of windows for your house, and you went to Anglian, and they could supply those to you, but it was going to be at a cost of a couple of grand upwards, we would be the people who supply that on finance, so we would underwrite the loan. So as well as dealing with direct to business, we are also dealing with customers as well at the end of the day, consumers. And this is what I'm going to focus on when we're talking about our customer experience journey. So if I can kind of bring the problem to you, there was a lack of consistency across the business and how we did things in many ways, and then it was causing efficiencies in how our processes were put together and the outputs of them. In a really highly regulated environment, we have to be very careful in how we deal with our partners and consumers and customers. We found that there was definitely a lack of consistency when it came to conduct risk. So the amount and level of oversight that we had of our partners, and to make sure that they were doing things right and they had the right processes in place to be able to serve their customers properly when it comes to finance. Operationally, we definitely had the lack of consistency when it comes to how exactly we go about doing things as a business. So I don't think it's surprising to everybody, even in this day and age, that we do probably still to this day, hopefully not for much longer, use a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and things are filed differently, and we don't capture the same information across the different kind of sales team. So operationally, there wasn't things that kind of worked and flowed as one. And as well, commercially for us, we did notice the lack of consistency, especially when it came to reporting, and also how we manage our leads, and kind of different type of prospecting. So all in all, to summarize, there was definitely a lack of consistency and efficiency. And we did notice that we needed something to kind of bring this and tie this all together. So just to kind of give you an idea of how it was, we have this massive data warehouse which holds all of the information for the bank. Unfortunately, it's not very accessible to everybody, and you have to go through data people in order to get a report or any type of information out of it. So we decided as a division, what's the best way forward so that we can make the data that we have usable, relevant, more accessible in a way that allows us to be more efficient and have more consistency across the bank, and this division, partner finance. So we talked to the guys at Zoho, and we customized and built our own CRM platform purely for the use of our partner finance proposition and the sales guys in the division. And in that, it allowed us to have like one cohesive system where we knew we had all the right accurate data and this one source of truth that we could actually start to be efficient and have a level of consistency across everything we did. So I guess the outcome of that is, like I just said, now that we have this kind of one hub of information, we are able to do things like contact our brokers and our partners much more easily, make sure that they have the right processes in place and be able to log it and have an audit trail to do that. Operationally, we've got the right workflows in place to be able to kind of, I guess, have the right systems so that we're able to make sure that we're contacting our partners at the right point. And even when it comes to customers, we're making sure that we've got all our boxes ticked and we've got all kind of the right paperwork that we need and it's stored in one accessible place. And then from a commercial aspect, we do have information feeding in from the website where we can start to properly track our leads. So in terms of lead generation and creating new business, this is far easier than it ever was before, but also tracking performance of our current partners. This is much more accessible. It allows us to see it in a much more visual format. And I think it just adds that pure level of consistency, and it's definitely more efficient so that our sales teams and our people that work in partner finance can actually spend time doing things that shouldn't take that much time, like the admin things. So for us, I guess taking on the Zoho system, it's really allowed us to enhance our customer experience in being more accessible, and definitely allowing us to have better consistency with our communication and then all of our processes across the board. And then it does allow us to definitely track performance a lot better. So yeah, that's how I describe our journey with Zoho and customer experience strategy that we've put in place. To say that we are in the early days, parts of the bank are definitely more digitized, but we are, I guess it's little by little, like everybody probably on this call, it's taking small steps to make those big changes.
Thanks so much, Sally. It's fantastic to bring this to life and have a window to see how you're executing some great customer experience at Shawbrook with your strategy. Would you like to hand over the reins to Suvish? And in the meantime, I'm just going to have a quick look at the poll and also encourage those who haven't yet to take a look at the poll. So currently, we're seeing an average rating of 3.5 out of 5 for attendees to rate their company's customer experience strategy. Only 2 have given their company a 5-star rating so far. So we can see there's room for improvement, and as we've seen it, it can be a journey. So that's to be expected. But please do continue to answer our poll on the left-hand side there, and also encourage you to ask some questions that we'll come to after we've heard from Suvish. So Suvish is our final expert today. Suvish Viswanathan leads Zoho's marketing initiatives in Europe, and he's been with Zoho for many years. So take it away, Suvish.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Sally and Jeremy, for your insights. I'm sure our audience here will find it useful as they dig deeper into their CX journey. Now, this particular section that I have for the next 10-15 minutes, we have divided this into 3 main parts. The first part will cover about Zoho's philosophy that drives Zoho's CX strategy. The second one is, I think Julie mentioned at the beginning as well, this is about a new feature that we are about to be launched. It is about to be launched in the next 2 months. So it's confidential, but we thought it's good for you all to get a view of what we have been building in the last couple of years. And the third one, for those of you who are new to Zoho, I'll give a quick introduction of what Zoho is as a company, who we are, a few stats that'll help you to get a visibility of our global operations. So without further ado, the first part, which is a philosophy, and this is what actually drives our the strategy, which is the three main pillars of CX platform that Zoho has. The first one is the domain expertise, because we believe this is the foundation of everything that we do, having the expertise in the domain that we are working on. So this is not something which started a couple of years ago. As you can see from this timeline, this started back in 2005, which is 15 years ago, when we first launched our CRM on the cloud. So CRM, some of you, if you are our customers who are attending the session today, the product that you're using, CRM, is almost 15 years old, and it's been undergoing constant innovation, continuously being released with new features, new modules, and since then, as you can see, we have been building modules within this CX platform. As one of the slides that Jeremy had, it showed connecting the CX platform with the operations is important. And that's why you would see here operations, that is the finance part of the things which we've been building since last 15 years. It is connected with the CX platform that we have. Now, the domain expertise that we were able to build over the last several years, it has helped us to also look at the technology in a much more deeper sense, which does not solve your problems or CX problems that's for today, but also for the future. So how do we build a platform that is resilient and that is also available for businesses as they scale, not just from the size standpoint, but also the complexity that comes with the growth. Now, moving on to the second pillar, which is the technology pillar. When we look at the technology, our endeavor here from the beginning has been, how do we build the most powerful system in the category? While it solves most of the problem, how can we make it simple? So from usability standpoint, the accessibility standpoint, and how we can make it affordable. So these are the three main pillars when it comes to the technology that we look at. And from CX standpoint, customer experience standpoint, we're looking at this as a whole subject, which means starting from the moment a visitor visits your website or interacts with your brand, goes into the system as a lead. The lead is converted as a customer, and then the customer becomes a promoter of your brand. Now, while this diagram shows a linear movement of data, often it is not the case in reality. So there could be a customer who coming in as a lead directly, or a customer directly, and then there is a whole customer relationship management. Now, this was the case until last year. Now, last year, with the pandemic, we also saw a new layer being added to this system, which is the collaboration engine. As people started working remote, they had to interact with each other. The teams had to interact with each other in remotely. They had to interact with their customers in a remote meeting or remote training way. So this is the new layer that got added. And for us, it was slightly easier because we have a full-blown workplace collaboration communication suite. So for us, it was about picking the module from one of those suites and put it in the CX platform that we have. It again comes back to the point on the domain expertise on how we have built this over the years, which helped us to move modules between systems. So as we dig one layer deeper into the CX platform, so what was required for a customer or for a brand to give a unified customer experience, as Jeremy also stated as one of the pointers. So if you look at it, if you look at the journey, we're looking at from a website visitor tracking. When a visitor is on the website and chats with your team, that record has to go into the CRM. Once the record is in the CRM, then they go through multiple layers to qualify into the pipeline and then close as a customer. The customer data then goes into our help desk software. So if you look at it, there are multiple layers of systems in place, multiple teams that come into picture here, and all of them work with the data that that gets passed from one system to the other. So it is important that they have, at every stage, they have complete visibility of what the customer is looking for, what are their expectations, what if there are any problems, etc. And to add to all this, it is important that we also have a decision-making layer on top of it for your teams to decide if there are any anomalies, if there are any escalations. So that's why we have also got a powerful business intelligence layer on top of the data layers, the data modules that we have. And this is branded under Zoho CRM Plus. So in case you're already a customer, you would know about this. But if you want to try it out, you can always go to our website, search for Zoho CRM Plus, and get the 30-day free trial version. Now, this is about the functionality. Let me show you a couple of screenshots that I have from the product that gives you the view into what it really means to have a unified platform. As you can see here on the left-hand side, these are various modules within the customer experience platform that we have. For example, the CRM, which is the record handling part, the Sales IQ, which is for web chatting. So if you can embed Sales IQ on your website, so if somebody visits your website, they chat with your colleague, and the data gets integrated into the CRM. Similarly, the desk platform, which is right now that you can see on the screen, this particular module helps in help desk management or customer support management for managing your tickets. We've also added some of the marketing tools because it's important for example, today, many of the brands also see their customers raising complaints, raising issues on social media. So it is important that the social media gets the complaints or the queries on social media, it gets handled in an organized way, that like the way you would handle tickets. So if there is say, for example, a complaint or a query raised on Twitter or on Facebook, then your team can convert that as a ticket and resolve it from the tool itself. So at the end of the day, your team gets a single pane of glass to look at the customer issues and provide the services that are required to give optimum experience. Now, with that, we've also added the artificial intelligence layer on top of it, because CRM, customer support, the chat, email, marketing, all these have multiple sources of data, and it's easier for businesses to make some sense out of the data, and that's where the AI engine comes in. So our AI engine or AI initiative, Zoho's AI initiative, is branded under Zia. It's been active for the last 4 years, and we have constantly released new features, and it's active R&D work that is going on. So if you're using our CRM already, you could go to the setups page and look for Zia module, and you will see multiple features that are available, which you can configure for your CX platform. So these are some examples. I have listed just some examples which we have released in the recent past, which is available for our customers today. Moving on from the second pillar, which is technology. So we realize that the domain and technology is not enough. In today's world, our customers also have made investments in multiple third-party systems. And it is important that the CX platform they have in place, it also integrates with their other systems that they have invested on. So with that, so a third ecosystem, it is the marketplace that we have. We started it about 4-5 years ago, and it's quite flourishing system right now. So if you go to marketplace.zoho.com or marketplace.zoho.eu, which is our EU data center, you would see all the extensions that are available. So today there are more than 1,050 third-party extensions available, and these are available across different categories, so 40 plus categories. Now, what do you mean by categories? It's extensions for productivity suite, apps for collaboration, communication, and other. So I've got some examples. So here you would see Here you would see some of the logos. You may recognize many of these logos. So, for example, finance, telephony, we have over 100 partners available in our marketplace for telephony, and these are some of the most popular brands you would see in the market. So this is an example of how we are seeing this whole area, where it is not just about us developing features, us developing modules, but it is also about developing the platform in such a way that it is extensible. So you can extend it and integrate with third-party systems as well. Now, with that, so our vision for the entire platform has been how to lower the barrier of technology adoption. You would see many of these systems are, we hear it regularly from our customers that it has taken less time for them to go to the market with say, Zoho CRM or Zoho Desk. The idea here is how we can build the platform which is easier to adopt. But that doesn't really solve everything, because we have, as you can see from the earlier screenshots as well, and any CRM or desk or help desk product you take in the market, most of them follow similar design philosophy. Most of them have a similar user interface that the customer or is forced to use, because they cannot customize it much. And what happens at the end of the day, that a banking customer, a banking brand, or a retail brand, a real estate brand, all of them have to use the product the way the vendor designs it, not the way the customer really wants to use. And that's what we want to change. We want to solve one of the largest problems in the CRM industry, which is low adoption. Now, this is not a new or alien problem to any of us. We all know that CRM adoption is low because of multiple reasons. Either it is clunky, it is just too difficult to use. You have to take multiple steps to get into the data. And that's where we have been working on this particular feature for last 2.5 years. And now it is almost ready to be launched. So that's why we wanted to show it to all of you. Introducing Zoho Canvas. So Canvas and Zoho CRM. The slides that we are going to show for Canvas is confidential, so please keep it. Please don't speak about it. We'll obviously share these slides with you, but it is more for an introduction to all of you. And if you are a CRM Enterprise Edition customer or an Ultimate Edition customer, we are happy to give you an early access. So please write back to us after the webinar if you are interested in this feature. So what is Canvas exactly? Right? So it is our way of getting the data meet the design aspect, or the design, or having the design layer on top of the data that you have. So we all know that CRM in many of our organizations, many of our places, it's mostly a collection of a lot of data from different sources, and is often not designed in the right way. Which ends up in the usual interface that you would see. There are multiple stages of a lead or of a customer, and it goes from one stage to the other. So this is something which is standard across the industries. But is the business common across? Do they work in similar fashion across industries? The answer is not. They don't. All of them have their unique way of addressing the data and processing the data. So why shouldn't they have the freedom to build their own CRM? And that's what we're trying to do. So if you're looking at this particular screen, where this can be entirely customized. So for example, this is one example of how a bank can customize their CRM. So you can see that most of the information that is needed by an employee to contact a customer is available on one screen without having multiple clicks, without doing multiple clicks. Now, this is an example of how a real estate can configure and customize their CRM. So you might wonder that how can we make this, right? We don't have designers, we don't have a developer. So that's where our philosophy of technology development that comes into picture here, where we are trying to build this powerful design engine on top of the data that you have, yet make it very simple. So this is the editor so the screen that you saw in the previous slide, it was built in an editor like this. As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it is all the CRM modules that you have in your organization, which is drag and drop. So it's like having a design tool for your CRM. You can drag and drop the way you would like your teams to see the data. The data follows the canvas view also follows the same permission access, role access. So if you don't want, if you have configured the CRM in such a way that certain roles have or certain profiles have limited access, Canvas follows the same instruction. And this is entirely done in a no-code manner. So just drag and drop all the components that are available, and your data is fetched and put in the design canvas that you have made. So this is what Canvas is. We are happy to give you a detailed demo if you would like. Just write to us after the webinar, and we will be launching this feature globally in a couple of months' time. So with that, I move on to the third part of the section, which is Zoho. So our people who have already learned about Zoho, know about Zoho. It's one of the things that we are proud about is our operations that are mostly managed by us. So we, for example, our data centers as well. The data centers are managed, owned by Zoho. So we are not on any hyperscalers. It helps us to, again, brings back to the first point, which is domain expertise. Now, how do we build systems that are scalable, that can be replicated, mirrored across region? So that's where this comes into pictures. We have about 10 data centers across the world. In Europe as well, we have a couple of data centers in Netherlands and in Ireland, and in other regions as well. We have, in the last 3 years, we have expanded aggressively in Europe. We have now got offices in Netherlands, in France, in Germany, and we are expanding in other regions as well. So that's about the global footprint. Some stats to help you to sort of know more about the company. Now, as far as the user data is concerned, one of the philosophy of our operations has always been on protecting the user privacy, and that's what we have been working on since the beginning of our operations. So our philosophy is quite simple. The data that you as a customer entrust on us, we don't own the data, you do. And we never sell your data, so we don't have any advertisement ad model. So which means that even our free model of the products, most of the products out of the 45 plus products that we have free version in many of those products, and none of those products have an ad model. So this helps us to focus entirely on building the product in an organic way, and also whatever the business we get out of it, we put it back into the R&D. So that's been the simple philosophy of the business, and it has been quite. We have done quite well in the last 25 years of operations. So this year we also complete 25 years in the industry. As far as apps are concerned, Zoho.com website would give you a complete visibility of the apps that we have. Today we have more than 45 apps in over 180 countries. We have customers. Last year we crossed this milestone of 60 million users, and globally we have 9,000 employees. So this is a bit about Zoho, and I'm happy to hand this over to Julie so that we can start our Q&A round of this webinar. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Suvish. It's been really good to hear about how the right tools can contribute to delivering an excellent customer experience. So yeah, we're just going to take some questions now. 1 second. I'm just going to take a look. So I think firstly, I will just ask, I think Jeremy could probably take this one. We have a question from Roy Edwards, who says, if we're taking it from a customer's perspective, we haven't mentioned the importance of content in the customer experience or user experience. Does it remain true that content is king or queen in terms of customer engagement?
That's a really good point. It's certainly part of the story. So most interactions involve some kind of content, whether that's documents or images or videos even. But it's obviously not the entire story. So absolutely essential, there has to be some kind of content development and management capability in place. But would I say it's king? I'd say it's probably certainly board level, shall we say. You definitely need it. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Sally, just a question for you in terms of getting everyone on board. How did you manage to get different product teams on the same page at Shawbrook?
That's always a difficult one, isn't it? I think as a business, we realised that this was something that was really needed. So I guess it was prioritised amongst the business. And I think we're not a massive team. So we do work quite cross-functionally over, well, I do anyway, and within the division that I work in, we happen to be quite good at kind of collaborating. I think it really takes everybody to be kind of bought into what the results are going to be. And I think having worked a certain way for such a long period of time, we all realised that this was a time for change and it was definitely needed. And I think it's different for every business depending on your size and depending on kind of the priorities within the business. But I guess it really needs to come from top management who need to believe in it. As much as it needs to come from bottom up, it needs to come from bottom down or top down as well. And for us, that was definitely the case. I think, especially when you're looking at, I guess, the cost of these things, it's probably one of the biggest barriers to getting something like this in is when you're looking at the cost to benefit. But I guess for us, we really did see the benefit in it. And I guess it's something that you're going to need to do to invest in the business in the long term.
Okay, thanks, Sally. And Suvish, I think this one would probably be for you. So we have a question from Wakas Q, who asks, how will email stats like open, CTR, etc., how will they be monitored for iOS users once iOS 15 is released with the new privacy features? Do we have any plans to mitigate those changes?
Yeah, so it's thanks, Julie, and it's a great question, because this announcement came from Apple just a couple of weeks ago, and it's great that they have taken this stand on privacy. As far as our products are concerned, we are monitoring right now. I think it is available mostly for Apple Mail, but as our customers use our email marketing tools, which is like Campaign or the emails in the CRM, we are looking at ways how we can still give our customers the visibility they need staying within the boundaries of privacy. So this is something which is constantly evolving, and we are working towards that.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Suvish. We actually have another question from Roy. And again, probably, Jeremy, if you could take this one, please. A major problem for organizations, irrespective to size or sector, is the need for a unified data model to ensure access and customer visibility. So what are the first steps an organization needs to take when their data is held on disparate systems?
Wow, that's a really, really tough question to answer. I think, first of all, probably auditing what you've got, trying to understand it. And then I think the other thing to do is to agree a set of data standards. What does the data actually mean? So that if it's moving between systems, there's some kind of translation that can take place. So, you know, on one system, customer may go by a different name. On another, you know, again, it could be different. So standardizing those sort of high-level data definitions, I think, is really important. So having a standard data model, if you like, once you know what data you've got. But I also think it's about understanding what data you really need. To my mind, there's obvious sort of transactional data you've got to have, and that would probably go without, you know, without too much thought. But I think when trying to understand customers, it's also important to adapt their profiles based on their behaviors and what they actually do. And so having some kind of customer profile that is kept up to date is really important, so that, you know, you're not sort of responding to how they were or their needs were a year or two ago. You're actually kind of up to date with it. And I think, you know, even companies like Amazon struggle with this stuff. I mean, how many of you have had offers from them based on products you've already just bought? You know, I'd like the other week, I needed to replace my dead lawnmower, bought one, and then, you know, 2 days later, I got an offer of another lawnmower from Amazon, even though I bought the new one off them just a couple of days earlier. So this is a big thorny challenge, and I guess it needs somebody within the organization to kind of own the challenge and then work through their colleagues in other departments to bring it all together. It's not an easy thing. It's a tough nut to crack, that's for sure.
Thanks very much, Jeremy, for that. Sally, just a question for you on who led the transformation at Shawbrook in terms of you know, customer centricity.
So we're built of different divisions, like I explained before, and we all have our kind of change teams within it. So as a whole, there is a change function that happened to deploy that throughout the organization. I think when you are dealing with kind of bigger teams and a lot of people involved, sometimes there is a bit of too many cooks spoil the broth. So so there does need to be those couple of people who just completely take hold of it. I guess within consumer would be one of my main kind of objectives, to work with the change team along with kind of the senior team to work on the strategy of how we actually implement changes throughout. But it's not an easy thing to do, I'm not going to lie. But we did have a change team that took hold of it and made sure that we were on track delivering what we needed to be delivered throughout the whole process.
Okay, fantastic. We've just got a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to take another quick look at the poll. Thank you for everyone who contributed to that. Again, we've still landed, I will just show the results to everyone. We've landed on 3.5 out of 5 overall in terms of ratings, with plenty of people somewhere in the middle. So I think, again, it's just showing that, you know, there's some great work that people feel like the companies are doing in terms of customer experience strategy and execution, but there's ways to go as well. So really hope that this helped everyone today. And I'd like to thank you all for your time in attending the session, and thank our guest expert speakers for their contributions as well. I'm sure everyone found it extremely insightful, and hopefully you've got some extra great guidance to improve the experience you can give to your customers. We'll soon share with you a recording of the session and the report I mentioned earlier from Jeremy, which gives more detail on CX strategies and Zoho solutions. And as Suvish mentioned, you know, we'll be able to organise demos for you for Canvas for those who are interested. So once more, I'd like to thank everyone. And on that note, I shall wish you all a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Julie.